Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maithili Dandige, and I am the General Manager for AI for M365 Purview. It's an exciting time to be working at the intersection of data security and AI. And today, I'm joined with Ashish and Shushma, my exceptional colleagues, and they're going to take you through some exciting demos, and we look forward to having some fun. All right. I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. And the story is something that I've heard from many of you in the audience. There are several customers we worked with, and one such friend of mine is Sarah. And Sarah works in a financial organization. And her board comes up to her, and a common inquiry is, Sarah, we want to roll out M365 Copilot. Tomorrow? We can't. I have no idea what it's going to find. And the truth is that it's a freight train. 2.3 million documents scattered across SharePoint sites, Teams, Dataverse, Azure, Fabric. 3 years of merger talks, client portfolios, SSNs, all floating in the cloud on devices, in repositories, waiting for AI to surface this information, probably to the wrong person. Also, maybe the response is not going to be that good. And really, at the core of Sarah's challenge is all of our challenge, which is fragmentation, which isn't just a problem, it's a ticking time bomb. And one of the big things that we hear from customers time and again is the lack of consistent classification, governance, and security. 86% of you and all of us prefer an integrated platform. A single source of truth, end-to-end visibility, unified policies, and ability to collaborate and innovate. And this is the reason why we believe that Purview is that integrated. It is the fastest growing platform and solution as it's attaching to Microsoft environments. We're best in class today, and that's what we are going to talk about. We are built in, we are unified and integrated. Securing AI is securing your data. And 90% of that data has been created in the last 2 years. Now, when we think about this data, it is the currency. It is the fuel for innovation. And we don't just think about data as something that's created and processed. We really believe data is now thinking. We think, humans think, data thinks, LLMs process this data, and it thinks on that data. And when you think about this data being handled across humans in an environment, but now with agents coming in, they can interact with a human, they can interact across themselves, and that's where our challenge is. Now, I've been on this journey for 8 years with Purview, and for a long time with Microsoft, working across our digital estate. And it's gone from silo to unified. This has been an amazing journey for us. At the core of it has been, we want the knowledge to be really, really at the fuel of businesses. But at the same time, we want the security and the governance and the trust. And that is the reason why we've really consolidated and unified our digital estates, as you can see over the years. Now, when you think about Purview, it has become, not because we started overnight, we intentionally built Purview as the single, unified, integrated control plane working across all of your digital estate in Microsoft, whether it's Microsoft 365, your data estates, Fabric, Azure AI, Dataverse. Well, if you bring in Copilot Studio, now Foundry, we are built in and native and integrated. And I like to think of this with an analogy. Every Batman needs a Robin. The partnership is one that is valuable and powerful. Your Microsoft data estate is the Batman. Powerful, valuable. However, it's operating in an extremely complex environment. Purview is the Robin. Not competing, yet it is the one that's making it safer, more visible, more effective at protecting against data leakage, oversharing, compliance risk, and shadow IT. And that is what you're going to see today across 2 chapters that we're going to work with. And one of the big things that we've done really with data security is that we've built in this integrated data security solutions, launching our data security posture management unified in public preview. We bring together our detections, our best of not just insights and on activity, but posture. We want to tell you, like weather patterns, how do you think about the risk? How do you go about understanding what's covered, what's not? So we're bringing that together with DSPM, where we bring in all of our capabilities across your discoverability, recommended policies, as well as investigations. All of this fueled with AI. We think about all of our controls seamlessly extending to protect your AI data, not just your data estate. And we believe that we want to give you, we are absolutely on this agentic journey because we want to make the data security admin as well as the analyst extremely productive and efficient with how they manage their data security program. And so we're fueling these with our agentic capabilities with Security Copilot. When we think about all of our investments, we think about this in 3 categories. One is, how do we give all those amazing capabilities in data security that will help you get your data estate ready for AI? So we're going to show you that. How do we make that seamless, as well as simplified and integrated across M365 and beyond your M365 data estate? Next, how do you unleash all of that value to secure your AI, whether it's your copilots, your agents that you're building across Copilot Studio, Foundry? We cover it all. And last but not the least, we're going to talk about how we're bringing AI-powered data security with DSPM and agents. So with that, let's get into the first chapter. And I want to start by, before we get into the demos, make some amazing announcements. There are a lot of announcements, but I picked these few because this is where we start. The unified data security posture management, which gives you that single view across your digital estate for all of your risk and posture across all data. Next is we're bringing together all of these out-of-the-box reports within the data security posture management plane. And finally, we're also giving you an ability to natively go and scan and apply this classification and labeling to your knowledge sources so that you can actually go and ground this data and make it ready for AI. And we're going to show you all of that exciting things which you can go and try out. With Secure AI, we continue to amp up our investments on oversharing, data risk assessments, bringing those capabilities for security controls natively built in to basically give you all of that data security, labeling and DLP, as well as managing your oversharing risks. As well as we're bringing together inline DLP. This is something that you asked us. How about if I have not labeled something, can you still go and detect that sensitivity within a prompt? We've brought that. And finally, we're also bringing our capabilities on devices. We've announced DLP for Windows Recall on Copilot and PCs. Really, we're all about bringing that value to you. So with that, let me bring on stage Ashish to show you this exciting demo.
Thank you, Maithili. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish, and for the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you through this amazing section here on Purview Plus M365. Now, we have talked a lot about AI, especially in the context of M365 Copilot. And the point that we reinforce is that security for your AI is really about getting data security in place for your core data assets. And in the context of M365 Copilot, that is all your data in the M365 graph, SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, Teams, and if you're using it on your endpoint, getting your data on your endpoint right too. So for the next 15 minutes or so, that's what I'm going to cover. We're going to blaze through a ton of content, show you a lot of screens of stuff that's hot off the press, and I hope you'll enjoy all of it. So take a ton of photos of the content and the presenter, and have a lot of fun. All right. When we try to talk about this, we try to model it in a simple way. There is the Copilot right in the center, and there is all the data that you use for grounding your knowledge sources going in, and all the interactions that your users do with that knowledge and your LLM on the other side, the interaction, prompts and responses. Protecting all of this is our job. Let's get into the knowledge sources. This problem, well understood by everyone, is called oversharing. This is when users have more access to data than they should. Typically sensitive data that you don't want everyone in the company to access, but they do somehow. Is this a Copilot problem? It isn't. It's a core data security problem. And so the answer to that is a simple three-step process. Identify what you want to clean up, classify and label your sensitive data, and then clean up your permissions. Why all this matters is because Copilot will deal with this in the right way if you do the right thing with your data. Copilot honors those permissions. So take care of your data, and Copilot will handle that in the right way. Let's take an example with SharePoint. Now, in my tenant, I have a bunch of SharePoint sites, HR, finance, and as you can imagine, probably have a ton of data in them. In this HR site, for example, a lot of files, but you can see none of them have sensitivity labels on. If you look into the library settings, you can also see that I have no labels set up, which means new content not getting labeled either. And finally, there is some files out there, as you can see in the background, have SSNs and things like that in them, shared with everyone in the company. Crappy security. Let's go clean it up. Our journey is going to start with data security posture management, the new experience that we have in the Purview portal. And while we are going to give you a teaser here, you can see more and learn more about this today at the 4 p.m. session. DSPM is modeled around posture and the outcomes that you want to achieve with your data security. We give you metrics that you will find extremely useful to understand where you are today and where you want to be in the future. And we put playbooks right in the product because you want to go from point A to point B, and our product is going to get you there. The two objectives that map to our model that we saw earlier are right there in the product. Oversharing, the outcome there to solve the grounding data, and the data exposure one to solve the prompt and responses. Let's look at the oversharing objective. Right there, insights that tell you what is going on. And if you scroll down, you can see that we give you risk patterns that you should work on and look into, dive into those to understand what you should do next. So a lot of insights here to just understand your space. Step one, understand. When you pop back out, you can see that we have made ready for you, based on everything that we see in your tenant, a bunch of remediation steps that you should take. And those remediation steps lay out the plan, going from zero to getting it done, what you can do within our product to get yourself ready for M365 Copilot. So I'm going to scroll down and pick the one for the custom assessment. I'm going to show you some interesting stuff along the way. Now, when you get in here, the first thing that you'll see is the default assessment, which looks at the top 100 sites by usage. This is where your users are there. Max usage, pay attention to that. But in my example, I'm going to go create a new assessment, give it a name, and by default, we look at the source level. In this case, it's a SharePoint site. But we have added one little thing that is super interesting, which is the item level data. And this is where we get into the file and look at the risks at a file level. Let's see what that looks like. And in order to do this, you need to register a new Entra app, which will allow us to access the SharePoint Graph APIs. Go into Entra, configure the right permissions, set up a client secret, come back, plug that in, and you're done. With this, we can now go look at each individual file, their permissions, their sensitivity, their access, and build a comprehensive picture of what is going on. Scope your assessment to the sites that you care about. In this case, I want to first clean up my HR site, and let's get going. The data assessment will take some time to run. Once that is done, and you dig in, you can see a ton of insights showing up right away. How many files are there, how many are sensitive, how many are labeled, how many were accessed, and we get into all of this. Let's get into the one site that we had scoped and picked, and the product will guide you through the steps that you need to identify, protect, and monitor. This is going to be the sequence of things that you're going to repeat constantly to get ready with your core data security. When you look at the data, which is all about identifying what is there, you can see that my site currently has nothing unidentified. Everything has been scanned. But if you create new custom sensitive information types, or you have a bunch of old information lying around that you need to go clean up, then starting with the on-demand classification is a great step. So let's go do that and see what it does for us. The first step is estimation, looking at your data and seeing what it will cost you to go scan that data all over the place. And then jumping in, once estimation is done, tells me about 35 items, 7 cents, start the classification. Now, classification is important purely to understand what sensitive data you have, because your data estate is super big and you need to understand it. But also it is the basis for doing auto-labeling, and we'll touch upon that in just a sec. Popping back to the data risk assessment, in the Protect tab, you will see a whole bunch of label-related guidance that you will have to go do. Default labels, site default labels, default library labels, and auto-labeling. Everything to get you 100% label coverage. And you will understand why label coverage and labeling matters a lot. Let's look into auto-labeling and see how we can set that up. Standard auto-labeling policy creation. Pick a template or choose a custom policy, give it a name, choose the label that you want to apply if this policy hits, scope it to the sites that you care about. Again, I'm going to pick the ones that I'm going through the custom assessment because that's where I am right now, and set up your rules that will fire and trigger the auto-labeling process. Now, the really interesting thing here is we have updated the entire rule builder experience to be more like the DLP one. So it has got a lot of granular and/or predicates that you can use, get fine-tuned with that auto-labeling policy. Set it up in simulation mode, and let's go. Now, when the simulation mode actually completes, what you will be able to do is review these items. And as you are reviewing them, choose whether you have done the right thing and you want to fine-tune the policy, or ready to go. Let's turn on auto-labeling for everything. When all this is done and your items are getting labeled, you want to know what's happening and understanding of your data estate and your activities on it. So I'm very happy to talk about built-in reporting capabilities that are coming to Purview. And there's a deep dive that's there tomorrow for those that are interested. Now, right there in the DSPM experience, we have a ton of reports available for you to dig into your data and dig into your posture. And as you scroll through the list, you'll find one on auto-labeling. When you dig in, you can see everything about auto-labeling there. The policy posture, what items were labeled, what sensitive information was found, where it was found, where it was labeled, the depth of it. And this is why we think this is going to be such a powerful end-to-end solution, starting from what you need to do to complete insight on what is actually going on. Isn't this awesome? Yeah. Thank you. Now, we talked about how we can identify sensitive data, but we didn't touch upon permissions. So let's go look at that. Back in the data risk assessment, we have this little bit about potentially overshared items. This was tied to that Entra app that we added. We're looking into the risks now. Now, you can see there are 5 files that show up as risks. These have everyone sharing links in the organization. A lot of them don't even have labels. Now, how do we handle this? And I have 3 options for you right there in the experience. First is to notify the site admin, have them handle it for you. Or, as the compliance admin, you can apply the sensitivity label. And my favorite, kill the sharing link yourself, right there. So let's go have a look at this. Step 1, let's notify the SharePoint admin. Send an email, and this is what that email looks like. You can see this is where we are telling you what's going on, what you need to do, take your actions. But most importantly, the consequences of not doing so. Clearly informing your site owner that if you don't handle it, I as the compliance admin have the power to do something about it. So now there is a backstop to everything that's getting done in your organization and a time limit to everything. So let's go back. The site owner hasn't done anything. Let's clean this up ourselves. So the first thing is, let's remove the sharing link. Select the file that you want, click the sharing link option, it'll go through the experience, done. It's about as simple as that. Finally, you can check this by actually going to the file and seeing that it doesn't have an anyone sharing link. It's only those that have access. So you have pulled out the sharing link from there. If you want to set a sensitivity label, pick one from the list, then apply it. It becomes as simple as this to actually get your data in place and cleaned up for Copilot. Now, one thing that we always do is ask our customers to set up DLP rules based on their requirements. So when you look at the Protect experience, you will see that there is a guidance out there to go set up DLP rules. Let's go do that. So let's go set up a DLP policy, pick Enterprise Apps, standard DLP setup, pick M365 Copilot as your location, and choose the label that you want to enforce this grounding block on. And it will tell you that you can block Copilot from processing content based on this label. All right, you have set up this policy. Now let's see how all of this comes together. Your labels, your DLP, all your policies in place. How does this affect your user experience? When you reference files that you have labeled and cleaned up in Copilot, and you can see that in the screen, right there, Copilot picks up the label that has been used. And how does it know which label to pick up? Because it's the label of the file that you have set. And you can verify this again by going into the file and it's the same label. So set the labels on the file and Copilot will become aware and will honor it. Well, what about the DLP policy? Let's take internal confidential, which was the label that we set in the DLP policy. Let's go to Copilot and ask it a question about that file. First thing, I understand the label, Copilot flags that. But it also tells you it's not going to summarize this file for you. That's exactly the block that we want to prevent Copilot from using that data. So we covered all of this for SharePoint in the context of Copilot. Let's quickly see what this looks like in the context of Windows and AI PCs. Now, as AI PCs become more prevalent and sensitive data does exist there, we got to do the right thing in terms of protecting it. And this is, again, a very similar playbook that we have. Just classify and label your data and set up DLP rules. Why? Again, because Windows and Copilot on these PCs will honor the sensitivity labels and the controls on that data. Super important. Find out what sensitive information is there. Go through the on-demand classification experience. Pick devices. As simple as that. Understand what data is going on. Then you get to set up DLP rules for Windows recall. And let's see how this works out. So for my example, I have 2 documents side by side. One is a non-sensitive notepad file. The other one is a Word document with the label Protect Recall. Okay, now, when we set up our DLP rule, we do this through a recommendation in the DSPM experience. It'll tell you to go use endpoint DLP to block this kind of content. So as you're setting up your policy, pick the label that you care about, Protect Recall, And in the action, it will say restrict content in Windows Recall. As simple as that. Set up your DLP policy and you're good to go. How does this look? As Recall and DLP are working together in the background, you will see as you go through your screenshots that the Word document that was sensitive just disappears. This content is not snapshotted as a part of the recall process. And you know this is happening because in your audit logs, you will see this policy log enforced. This is amazing. Now, we've covered everything about knowledge sources. Let's quickly talk about prompts and responses. Prompts and responses, we have heard you loud and clear. We understand that there is sensitive data in those prompts at times, and we need a way to control that. Now it's going to be as simple as putting a DLP policy in place, because again, Copilot would honor those data policies that you have set up. So what we are announcing is Prompt DLP. Again, I'll give you a teaser today, but there's a deep dive tomorrow that you absolutely should attend. Standard DLP policy setup, choose custom, give it a name, and give it the location M365 Copilot. And this is where the magic comes after you scope the user. In the content contains condition, pick sensitive info types because you're going to detect content in your prompt. Choose credit card number, that's the sensitive information type that I've picked. And this is where you'll get the option to block processing of prompts if the sensitive information is found. Save the policy, turn it on, and now let's see what actually happens. When I run this prompt with a credit card number in there, it clearly calls out that it's getting blocked because of Copilot policies that are in place. And this is how, end-to-end, you are able to take grounding, clean it up, protect it, and prompts look for sensitive data and protect it. This holistic view and holistic protection is exactly what we want to bring to you and safeguard your AI journey. Now, we have only covered the tip of the iceberg of everything Purview can do for core data security. And you've got to start this now and keep your learning journey on. This is why Copilot is the most enterprise-grade AI available for you to use, because Purview is backstopping you with the best productivity experience coupled with security. So, with this little teaser here, keep exploring. Back to you, Maithili.
Thank you, Ashish. All right, and we want to keep going with this playbook. You just saw everything about M365, and we just showed you SharePoint and devices. Trust me, you're going to like all of the stuff that we are doing. Beyond M365, we want to talk about Fabric today. There's a lot to talk about, Azure AI, Foundry, and you're going to talk about observability in the end, and how we're bringing that to all of your data and agents. But let me start by saying Fabric is one of your biggest knowledge sources. We see about 40% of data is accessed from Fabric by AI apps. So what are we doing with data security in Fabric? Well, we have the complete playbook for data security in Fabric now. We have Purview protection policies with granular label-based controls in Fabric. Next, we have data loss prevention for restricting access to OneLake and structured data. And last but not the least, we have insider risk indicators within Power BI. Now, you can get started with all of that data security built into Fabric. And how do we make that simple? Well, with DSPM. We've brought in the data risk assessment that you saw with oversharing. We're not stopping. We're expanding that assessment, and we've expanded that assessment to Fabric. Sushma is going to show you that exciting demo. And finally, all of those Copilot interactions that are happening, those prompts and responses within Power BI Copilot, they are now integrated in DSPM. That full playbook, let's take a look.
Thank you, Maithili. Hey, everybody. It's so great to be here. We're going to switch tracks a little bit from all the goodness that you've seen in M365 now, and we're going to talk about all of the goodness in Purview and Fabric. I hope you're jazzed about the demos so far. We're going to get you more excited, I hope, by the end of this. So just like we looked at the oversharing problem in M365, the problem is also real in Fabric, which means the good news is that you can apply a similar playbook. You can identify the exposure risks in DSPM, just like you would for M365. Number two, create your sensitivity labels and apply them to your Fabric items. You can simply repurpose the sensitivity labels that you have for your M365 estates, just use them in Fabric. You don't have to create anything new. And then you're able to restrict access at scale for these sensitive items using the data loss prevention solution. When you do all of this, what you get in the end is your protections in Fabric as well as Fabric Copilot. Okay, let's look at all of this in action, starting with DSPM. So if you remember, Ashish walked you through the risk assessment report on the M365 side, right? So in DSPM, we have the Fabric tab as well, which gives you a Fabric risk assessment report. By default, you will see the Fabric default assessment here. So let's click right into it, into the details, and see all the kinds of information that are available to you as the admin. The donut right on top there shows you sensitive information types. So that gives you a view into all of the sensitive data that DSPM has found. Things like social security numbers, credit card numbers, and all of these things are the candidates for this particular graphic. Then we have the sensitivity labels. Now here you can see how many items are labeled or not labeled. And then you have the bar chart, which shows you how broadly are Fabric items accessible to users both within and outside your organization. You can also create a custom assessment here, just like you do for M365. Here is where you can scope down your assessment to like a specific or set of Fabric workspaces that you are interested in. Then we're going to look at the table at the bottom right here. You can see details for every single Fabric workspace that is a top accessed workspace within your Fabric instance. Let's pay close attention to the marketing one here because it has the highest number of items and also the user accesses. And we're going to track this through the demo that I'm going to show you in Fabric as well. So here in this tab, you can see additional information about the marketing workspace. How many labels, how many items have labels, how many don't, so you understand how much work there is or not in this particular workspace. Then we get into the Protect tab, where you see proactive actions that you can take. In this case, you can see that there is a create DLP policy action that's been recommended for you. So it's basically taking you or recommending you to go into the data loss prevention solution and create DLP rules there to protect your sensitive information. So now you know that you have risks in Fabric, and you know what to do about it. So let's move forward with creating the policy in DLP next. So this should look familiar. Ashish walked you guys through this one. This is the data loss prevention solution. So here I'm going to show you the Fabric policy that I've explicitly set up for the items that we discovered in DSPM. Skip through the first few screens. So this is a critical one where you're selecting the workspaces that you want to monitor as part of your DLP policy. So I've got these 4 workspaces here, but as you can see, the marketing one is also included here. This was a tip I received from my risk assessment report in DSPM. Next, we set up the rule. As you saw before, a rule has 2 parts. It has conditions and it has actions. So I'm going to get into this Fabric PII rule that I previously set up. And you can see that it's looking for all of these different sensitive information types, including the credit card number, which we found in the DSPM risk assessment report. Additionally, I have an OR condition here. You can do an OR or an AND. And I'm looking for sensitivity labels as well. So if you've got Fabric items that have like highly confidential labels applied on them, those are also in scope for this particular DLP policy. Next, we go into the actions. So you've defined what are you looking for. Now, what do you do when you find those items? So here I've got restrict access, which blocks everybody or anybody from accessing this particular item when found. Additionally, I've also got a Fabric policy tip, What this means is that when users access sensitive content, they see this tip, that there was sensitive PII found in this data. I want you to remember that phrase because we're going to see that in action when we switch over into Fabric. OK, now we turn on the policy, and we're done with DLP. Now we're going to make all of this real and see it in action within Fabric. So this is, again, the admin view. I'm coming in here as the admin, taking a look at my OneLake catalog. I'm hoping that the protections are flowing through from DLP. You ready for this? I'm going to go into OneLake catalog. Look at those beautiful red dots. These are the access restrictions flowing in from our DLP policy. Now I'm going to pay special attention to the credit card usage semantic model, because this one has credit card information, which we found in the DSPM risk access assessment report as well. So here you see more information. And if you remember the policy tip that we added in DLP, that is flowing through right here. You can see that it found credit card numbers and other sensitive information here, which is why the access was restricted. Now at this point, I do need to introduce you to my friend Eddie, hypothetical, but my friend nonetheless. Very curious guy and analytical. He wants to find the top used credit card numbers. And he's heard about this credit card usage semantic model. Now he wants to see if he can get access to it somehow and maybe even build a report on top of the semantic model. So he's going to go into his OneLake catalog instance, and he's looking for it. Alas, no luck. So he's like, I wonder if I could get this from Copilot. So then he invokes Copilot and puts the same search string in there in the hopes that he can get access to this information. So now Copilot catalogs a few semantic models that it thinks might be relevant. He's like, I see credit card usage in there, so I'm going to use that and see what Copilot comes back with. Tough luck, Eddie. That's the power of Purview and Fabric. Thank you, everybody. Back to you, Maithili.
Thank you, Sushma. All right. So what you saw was securing data is securing AI, and best in class for M365 and Fabric. Now with that, let's move on to embracing AI-powered data security. When we think about an organization, it depends upon two roles. The data security admin is a very important job. It's looking at your posture. They're really trying to understand those risks. How do we understand, detect, and fine-tune those policies and apply them? And the data security analyst, their job is even harder now because humans, with all those policies, so many alerts and investigations to go after, but agents will create more. So how do we empower your teams with these agentic capabilities so that we can actually make these agents be part of your team and help you really get after those jobs? We're introducing two agents, the data security posture agent, who is the proactive agent that's going to work alongside your data security teams, looking at those detections, really understanding those risks, summarizing those risks for you, and also helping you continuously build that posture and increase that coverage and reduce the risk. And your triage agent that's going to be sitting with your teams, helping them get more efficient with their investigations and remediations. Let's take a look. First, let's talk about our triage agent, which goes GA. And we know today that 36% of data security alerts go completely uninvestigated. It's really expensive to run these alerts and investigations, and you take a long time. We take a long time. So what do we do about it? Well, with the data security triage agent, what it does is, in natural language, You can make it understand what's important to you. It already knows that because it knows some of the policies you've set. And what it does is that it's going to get at work and start to triage those highest priority risks that matter. Now, one of the things that it does is it really brings that focus to the team. And it says, let's go after some of these high risks. Now, just like a good team member, it starts to do its job, but it goes a little beyond. It starts to correlate that risk. What you want to know is the sensitivity of the data leakage. You want to understand where exactly that risk is, which today takes a long time, bringing those logs together, investigating, working with your teams. And then it also wants to tell you the policy violations against the policy risk. All of this is summarized by the agent so that you can get more efficient. Now, one of the things that we do is we wanted this agent to really empower and do the full job for you because remediation is at the core of everything. You want to investigate and you want to remediate. And this is the power of our built-in and integrated value that you just saw previously, but we've brought in it right here with the agents too. The agents can pick up this and also send you that notification right to the data security analyst in their team's experience. But they're doing that on behalf for the end user, so that if an end user needs to take an action, and let's all face it, not everything can be remediated by the admin, the data security triage agent does that on behalf. And this notification, it kind of gently nudges the user. It brings all of that context about what needs to be remediated, and it kind of gets that full job done. The power of bringing all of that into the triage agent. We're really excited about you trying this out. With the posture agent, we've taken a very simplistic approach, learning from our own learnings within Microsoft, but also from many of you. We know that data security is a big job, getting that posture right. And one of the big things that we do is bring all of that amazing value into DSPM. But how about we get that posture agent to actually start with really understanding simple things like, help me understand something about a secret project that you're working on. Today, you want to really understand what is the risk there, how should I go about doing it, what can I see, without sieving through all of those individual activities. And so you can run a natural language query here, and what it can do is, it not only summarizes it, but it can start to actually recommend some of the things that it should do based on that risk, because it sees a file perhaps that should have been classified but not yet classified. But more so, what it does is it starts to bring in the reporting aspects of it. It's really important to understand the context around the content and the risk. Who is the user? What's that risk? Who accessed the file? What's going on there with the risk? All of that is what the posture agent does as it sits within DSPM and gives you that value. And so here it summarized all of the files around the secret project and giving you an executive summary. Now, one of the things that we hear time and again when it comes to a job that is extremely intensive is, how do I understand data breaches? How do I understand when something is, say, sent out by someone that is at risk or has leaked? What else is going on? What's the blast radius there? With data security investigations, this is an AI-powered investigative solution. And what we've done is we can bring that right into your SOC experience. We've also integrated this, by the way, it works across your Copilot interactions, not just across your data sources. But here what I show you is it's already done the heavy lifting and said what it's found, which is potentially going to be leaked. Now, one of the common things when we think about data exfiltration is, give me all of the places where this data may have leaked, who has accessed this data. And so what we end up doing is we go and do this analysis for you. We hunt on that risk. And in this case, what you're seeing is you can see all of that data, but what you want to do is really a vector search. That's what we're doing underneath. We're finding all of that confidential data. You can say, find me all the customer information against the sensitive data. And so what it does is it goes across all those files, and it basically categorizes and brings this down. And that's the power of AI applied to a problem like search investigations. We're very excited to bring all of the new capabilities here. And finally, I want to talk about AI observability. I want to end with this, because when we think about the age of AI, we are going to have a lot of these agents. You saw the exciting announcements with Agent 365. Within DSPM, we've built that single control unified pane of AI observability. Of course, we've attached it within the right sort of experiences within Foundry, Copilot Studio, as well as your IT admins within the Mac portals, because we believe that that governance needs to be at the core and center. That's always been our philosophy, and we've brought that to agents as well. What you see here is really a comprehensive report that brings together all of those risks across these apps and agents that are getting built, and how is the risk showing up in terms of sensitive data interactions, insider risk, as well as data leakage. And you can see all of that built in today and ready to use. So with that, really we come to the end of it. We spoke about core data security, that foundation that Purview has now become, that single unified control plane. You want to get started with Purview to put those controls in place, because when you run those AI apps, you already saw with Ashish and Shushma how all of that value unleashes within your AI apps and copilots that run. And finally, we're very excited for you to try out these agents, give us the feedback. It all happens, they all get better as we all use it. It's a journey, but you're going to see us innovate more in this space. Well, we come to the end of it. That's our punchline. We are best in class for Microsoft environments, built-in and unified. And with the rest of it, please attend all of our remaining sessions. There's a whole bunch of exciting sessions, one with DSPM coming out at 4. And thank you all.